So hello everyone, thank you very much for joining our panel session here at Smarter Data, Smarter World on the Government Day. We've got a fantastic panel here with us. We've got Carol from the Eurogeographics, and Carol runs the UNGGIM Secretariat and the Knowledge Exchange Network. We've got Simon, who's a Data Engagement Manager at the Scottish Improvement Service, and we've got Adam, who is a lead specialist advisor for geospatial and natural resources Wales. Welcome everybody, it's great to have you with us. So just to kick off then, could you just explain a little bit about what you do in your job day to day, so that our audience know your background. Carol, would you like to go first?
Okay, thank you, Phil. Just a small correction, I run the UNGGIM Europe Secretariat. It's not the global one, just limited to the regional. So I work with Eurogeographics, which is the Association of European National Mapping and Cadastral Agencies. And basically my work it involves exchanging knowledge between our members, making sure we coordinate their experiences of how to manage data, apply data for decision making, and make sure that they're up to date with many of the aspects that are happening in the geospatial community.
Brilliant, thanks, Carol. Simon, would you like to go next?
So yeah, I'm Simon Roberts. As Phil said, I'm a data and engagement manager. The Improvement Service is a company that's essentially owned by each of the local authorities in Scotland. And our key responsibility is to surface data from local government, make it more valuable, improve it, make sure that it gets out to the rest of the data community so that it can do bigger and better things with it. And the counter side of that is liaising with users of the data and understanding what their needs are and how we can improve it to make it better for them.
Oh, brilliant. Thanks, Simon. That's great. Adam, would you like to finish up?
Yeah, so my name is Adam Burke. I'm Lead Specialist Advisor for Geospatial at Natural Resources Wales. So Natural Resources Wales is the single environment body for Wales. We look after anything relating to the Welsh natural environment, such as forestry, flood, marine, intertidal, all those kind of things. And in my day job, I'm responsible for geospatial strategy. So look at how we can make improvements with our use of GIS and spatial data, anything from desktop GIS to mobile GIS or anything relating to data about location, I generally get involved in.
Brilliant. Thanks, everyone. That was great. So we've got a great panel with us here today. And on the Government Day at this conference, we've been talking about authoritative data and looking at its use cases and the importance of authoritative data and the various processes that are there with how it's generated. Carol, there was a recent EuroSDR academic paper which you presented at a conference back in Malta back in January, which was looking at definitions of authoritative data. So could you tell us a bit more detail about what that definition is and how you came to it?
Well, the definition is basically based on the criteria of geospatial data. So basically, it looks at what is authoritative data, which is data which is provided by a body or an authority that has an official mandate to provide and sustain it. And basically, we know that it is coming from a known quality, that it is required to be used and reused within the public sector and within society as a whole, and used for decision making. The paper is based is a collaboration between EuroSDR and Eurogeographics and University of KU Leuven, and it was a survey from our members, from our 60 plus members across 46 European countries, and we wanted to ask them what they thought was authoritative data and how they are using it and how they are mandated to use it within their national remits.
Oh, brilliant. That's great. And I guess given the year we've had, the reason we're here like this is because of the COVID-19 pandemic, and there's been a need for increased global collaboration. And with authoritative data being data that has that mandated use, do you think its importance and the use of it has increased over this year?
Well, yes, and I don't think it's just geospatial data. I think people are really looking for data that they can trust, data that's coming from official sources. So, for example, our members have been supporting the health authorities and statistical authorities in providing updates to the pandemic, and this is, of course, seen if you look at all the COVID dashboards that we have all seen in our different countries. We've seen some brilliant examples from our members, for example, from Ireland, from the UK, Iceland. I've seen some brilliant ones from Sweden. So basically, of course, then there are wider regional ones, for example, Europe-based. So I think when it comes to some specific aspects, like, for example, health, people tend to go towards data that they can trust and data where you know that it's coming from. So I think yes. I think this pandemic has raised the profile for the need for trusted and authoritative data.
Yeah. I think you've hit it on the nail on the head there, Carol. The presence and the knowledge of geospatial data, and in particular authoritative data, is increasing. And so changing the scale then slightly from Wales, so from Europe to Wales. Adam, what are the policies and drivers in Wales that require high quality authoritative data?
Yeah, thanks, Phil. So some of the unique policies and drivers that we have in Wales are the Environment Act and the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act. So first of all, the Environment Act, it enables Wales resources to be managed in a more proactive, sustainable and joined up way. And one of the key parts of that act is the approach to the sustainable management of natural resources, which basically means that we're balancing all of our resources in equilibrium and that everything is going right. To quantify this, we've produced a report, the State of Natural Resources Report, and that report gives us an assessment on the resources and how well we're using them and how well they're being managed. And it's exactly this report and these policies that require us to use high quality authoritative data. And within the report, we make recommendations, sort of ways to improve and manage our natural resources, how we better make use of the landscape and things like that. And that's what we need that authoritative data for. And we work at different local levels across Wales, across a wide geographic area as well. So it's even more of a use case for that high quality authoritative data as well, because that's what helps us meet those policies and make better decisions on the environment of Wales.
Cool. Yeah, so that's almost then a completely different shift, I guess. So we've been talking about authoritative data being used in global pandemic responses. We've got environmental impacts there. We do all focus, Adam, at natural resources Wales. And I guess moving up to Scotland, Simon, I guess in your role and with the improvement service, you guys see firsthand the variety of uses of authoritative data, because you've got your the spatial data hub that you guys organise. And there's so many initiatives going on in Scotland. So we've got, the Planning Pathfinder report, so using data in planning. And, we just heard in the news yesterday about the new Scottish Geospatial Network Integrator project as well. These projects that you've got going on, are they having an impact on the requirements people are asking for and how authoritative data from your spatial hub is used?
Well, we certainly hope so. That's the intention. The start of our journey was really around addressing data and recognizing that we had 32 separate local authority bodies that were essentially creating address data in their own way, with little in the way of standardizations or conventions. And obviously, when you try and make any sense of that at a national level, it becomes very problematic. So we recognized that in order to get an authoritative national data source, we had to start creating some conventions and start working together and pulling together as a whole. So that's what we did, and we created the National Address Register, the One Scotland Gazetteer, and that became an incredibly valuable product. It's the authoritative list of addresses for Scotland now, and that now feeds into Ordnance Survey's commercial product, and we get a commercial return as a result of all of that. So we recognized if we could do it for addressing, why couldn't we do it for all the other rich and valuable data that often gets collected for one single purpose, for one reason, and we could improve that and again create more sort of national data sets out of that had more value, certainly when you wanted to have that overarching national context. So that's what we've been doing, and the Digital Planning Pathfinder report that you allude to is trying to unpick all of that and saying, well, look, if we just invest a little bit of resource on improving data standards and data governance and data management at the local source level, that benefits everyone when we come to use it for bigger and better purposes more nationally.
Yeah, I wholly agree, Simon, there. That's really interesting. And you said when you managed to achieve this source for addressing data, you started thinking about different data types that you could include in the spatial hub, and with changing needs for the data. Has this changing need, or how the data is used in decision making, as well as the variety of data sets that you're putting in? You mentioned standards and stuff. Have you found that you're having to change how you produce your authoritative data? You know, the supply chain in from local authorities or data capture processes.
It's a good question, actually. Certainly, one of the aspects that we've been looking at in relation to COVID is addressing records about certain types of things, particularly the health and social care sector. So obviously care homes has become a particularly high profile issue around COVID, and it became very apparent that we didn't necessarily have the right categorizations of addresses for care homes in the address register. But there are other bodies out there that have that information. The regulation bodies, the care inspectorate, have a list of every single care home in the country. But importantly, that isn't geo-referenced, and it doesn't have unique identifiers on it, so it can't be linked with other data sets easily. So what we've been able to do is take that data, pass it to our address custodians at the local level to get them to categorize it, add that location to it, add a unique identifier, and now we believe that we have a better single version of the truth that everyone can be using, rather than lots of people thinking that they have the definitive information on care homes. We think we have a better product there now, which is going to be more useful for the whole data community. And we'd like to sort of grow that model and work with other partners moving forward.
Yeah, and these unique identifiers is a big thing at the moment, especially, you know, with the Geospatial Commission's strategy and FAIR and all of that sort of thing. Interoperability is key. And I guess, Adam, I'd ask you the same question, because COVID-19 is obviously at the forefront of our minds, but environmental processes, climate change, all of that sort of stuff, that's Natural Resources Wales. That must also be at the front of your mind, because that's an ever-changing situation as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And we use that data at different levels as well, both local, national, and international level. And it's how that data is used is really important for us. So we are an open data by default organization possible. So naturally our data is used at a variety of different levels then. And that informs decision making. It could be flood data informing decision making at a local level, or species data at a sort of county level. It doesn't really matter. But it's how that data is used is the most important thing. So we publish that data to a geoportal, Flare, which is soon to be relaunched as Data Maps Wales. And what we start to do is take that a step further as well by producing a data and information portal. So the fact that data portals are great, you know, like data.gov, everything in one place, but some people want access to that raw data. They want to interrogate that data in different ways. So it's about us providing the tools for them to do that, so people can better understand that data. It also gives them the power, and we talk about it as putting the power in the user's hands, or the stakeholders' hands, or the members of the public hands, so they can better interpret that data and make better decisions from our data and our information.
Yeah, yeah, brilliant. That's really interesting. I think making this data available for people to use is another key thing that everyone's trying to do at the moment, the portals. And I guess, Carol, we've seen across Europe a number of countries are now starting to publish their authoritative data via geoportals. Different countries at different stages in that journey. Have you seen at Geographics with the people that you talk to as this rise in making data available via portals is becoming more prevalent, changes in the processes of how people are publishing that data?
Well, yes. I mean, if you look at our members, and in fact on our websites, we encourage our members to provide us details with their portals. And in fact, one of the things that we've done is in all our members' pages, we have links to their geoportals, because one of our aims is to make the data of our members as accessible as possible. So as soon as they make it accessible, we make it accessible from an easy page within our website where people can actually go and find the data from our members. We also, as Geographics, produce pan-European data sets, which are based on our members' official data. So we have a number of products. One of them, the Euro Global Map, is available for downloading and is accessible from our website. So we make that available as well. And I think one of the consequences we have also seen is that our members are also seeing a need for having more data. So they're also looking at maybe more innovative ways of actually producing this data, how to make this faster, more accurate, having quicker quality assessments. So we're looking at automated systems for quality. They're looking at the rise of artificial intelligence, for example, looking at how to produce it faster and quicker, and deep learning and machine learning, because they have to keep up with the demand. Because again, you know, the demand and the need for data sometimes outpaces the ability of our members to produce it. So they're always keeping at the forefront of producing information and data to meet different needs.
Absolutely, Carol, and that provides an excellent opportunity for a segue onto the next question I have, which is the demand for data is going through the roof. And there's a temptation as data producers to just think, flip, there's such a high demand, push it out, get it out, we need to publish our data quickly. But what would you argue, or, well, hopefully you're arguing yes, but if yes, why is the quality of the authoritative data we're producing important? And I'd say I put that back to you, Carol, there. And this is a question for each of the panelists in turn.
Okay. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, we know that data is the lifeblood of planning, policy, and even investment, because without data, you know, what are we going to do? So I think trusted sources for information are fundamental for providing certainty, both to governments, to citizens, to businesses. So I think in order to be able to trust the data, you need to know where the data are coming from, how they are collected, what is their quality. So I think from if you have data from organizations who are mandated to collect it, this is automatically known. So organizations like NMCAs for geospatial data provide the certainty. And we have to remember, I mean, the consequences of what are the consequences if you have lack of data or poor quality data? We have seen some horrific examples. So I think that's why the need for quality is almost self-evident in many use cases.
Brilliant. Thanks, Carol. Same question to you, Adam.
Yeah, so data quality is really, really important, and we could almost talk about this for hours and hours and hours. There's a favourite quote within my organisation, Natural Resources Wales, that I work in, which is, any decision made in the absence of good data is just a guess. And this is the quote that we brand about from our leadership and management team, because we brand ourselves as this evidence-based environmental organisation. So naturally, authoritative data is important to us, and the data quality is probably even more important. We often refer to data quality as known data quality internally, because we need to know that data quality, particularly if we are publishing that data or we are reusing that data internally to make other evidence-based decisions. Yeah, it just comes back to that. Data quality is important for us, and that known data quality.
Yeah, that quote's a brilliant quote. I love that one about it just being a guess. I feel it should be a marketing strapline there. That's fantastic. Yeah, Simon, same question to you.
Okay, I've got another good quote for you.
Oh, brilliant.
Data is only as good as the importance that is placed upon it.
Oh, brilliant.
I just came up with this earlier, but it's something that has focused our minds recently, because we see a lot of poor data being created out there. And generally the reason for that is often, we're going to talk about policy, I think, shortly, but the policy has often detached from the data about the policy. And where you see good examples of data is where it's far more important, where there are financial implications to getting it right, or whether it's to do with performance or monitoring. And you'll see a lot of effort put into standardizing data like that, and people putting more resources in it. When you don't have that stick or that incentive, then there's less reason for people investing resources in good quality. Yeah. And one of the other things that I would just go on to highlight is how we make quality assessments or quality statements visible to the people that are using them. You've got a lot of people, certainly around COVID, that are using whatever data they can find from whatever source and trusting it, and not necessarily knowing about the limitations of the data and the caveats. And that's because we don't effectively have a mechanism to proclaim what is good or bad within the data set. We have metadata records, yes, and we have data discoverability, but often it focuses on more higher level aspects of the data, And I've just been talking to the Aston Technology, who provide the metadata solution for Scottish geospatial data. And one of the things we're looking at is adding aspects of quality to those metadata records that can be easily and pragmatically populated, so that upfront, before anyone uses data, they have a clear idea of how comprehensive it is, how accurate it is, how precise it is. All those sort of key things that we as data experts almost take for granted, those need to be flagged up from the off. And that's something I'm particularly passionate about.
Yeah, I agree 100% what you're saying there, Simon. And you mentioned earlier about policy, and often some of the things that start to drive talking about the quality of authoritative data is when policy is laid down about how the data is used, and fines for poor quality data and things. Would you argue that those who are producing the data and those who are producing the policies is this a good working relationship? Is it all tied up? Considering they have quite a close impact on each other, how do you feel that that's working?
I think in the past we have spoken about these sorts of ways of working. I remember when I used to work for DEFRA in central government, that there used to be a concept of a policy cycle and a data cycle that mirrored the policy cycle. But more and more what I'm seeing just lately, maybe it's because I'm working in local government now, you see central government policy making being dictated down to local governments to enforce and carry out and produce services around. But nobody has thought about the data that's going to be needed to assess whether that policy has actually done what it set out to do in the first place. And we're not getting the experts on data involved in the policy making to actually make sure that it makes sense in the first place. So we're always playing catch up with the data. We're almost trying to backfill standards around data, around policies, and it's almost back to front. And that's the biggest problem that I think we face, certainly in Scotland and probably wider through the UK when we consider that policy data disconnect.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, Simon, you mentioned it with local authorities. Adam, have you noticed? Have you got anything to comment on a Wales-wide region, as it were?
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Simon. Actually, in that data policy doesn't often follow the policy cycle. We can have a new policy, but not go out and collect data to support that policy. And as we know, as sort of data professionals and data managers, that is really important. So yes, and we need that data and that authority data to support the policy, because as we've spoken about our conversation earlier, that's what we make decisions on. That's what drives. That's what sort of drives the world and drives that policy. And then we touch on data quality again. For me, it comes back to that, and yet equally as passionate about data quality. And for us to support that high level policy, we've got to have that sort of authoritative data correct, captured at the right scale. Scale is important to us, working at a national level, but also everything that quote that everything happens somewhere. We'll record data in a little local place that affects something else later on down the line. Yeah, it's all interlinked, and I think we do need to do more with it to support more policies that are coming out.
Brilliant, thanks, Adam. And I guess, Carol, same question to you, because Eurogeographics is often involved in policy, UNGJM. You get these sorts of conversations that are going on with input into policy on a European scale. I don't know whether things are the same or whether it's different at the international level. Yeah, I'd be interested to know your thoughts.
Well, first of all, data integration is very important. So as we know, geospatial information very often is the glue that brings all different data sets, be them environmental, be economic, socioeconomic, health. Geospatial information brings them all together. As Adam said, everything happens somewhere. So that the location is what brings it together. And now in 2020, even though it's a pandemic year, it's also the year where we're entering in the last decade of action until we get to the Agenda 2030. For those of you who are not familiar, it is the United Nations agenda with 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and there are 169 indicators. So basically, measuring and monitoring how well humanity is meeting global challenges at the global scale, regional scales, national scales, and subnational scales. So there is a need for, and it's almost an unprecedented need for data, and data which is disaggregated by age, by gender, by location. So that means that producers of authoritative data, and there are gaps, there are a lot of gaps, because remember, this is at a global level. So not every country is lucky enough to have the data that is required. So the producers of authoritative data really have to speak with the policymakers, the people who are actually measuring the indicators, and also speaking with other providers of other data to be able to measure the indicators and maybe being able to meet these global goals. So I think, yes, they are very important.
Thanks to you all. That was very interesting. Our time is nearly up. I've got one last question, which I'll pose to each of you in turn. So 2020 has seen the world change dramatically. What do you think the future of authoritative data is in a post-COVID-19 world? Let's go to Adam first.
Yeah, really good question, very topical. I think we're likely to see the need for a lot more authoritative data and naturally location. We've spoken about how important that is. Specifically in a post-COVID world, whatever that may look like, one of the initial future challenges will be vaccination, if we ever get a vaccine, of course. And vaccinating 66 million people in the UK is certainly going to be a challenge. Think about what, where, when, how are we going to do all that, and what, when, and where, location comes into that. So there'll be a lot. I think there'll be a need for a lot more of shared data across the UK and internationally, and how we integrate that data will change. Yeah, I think we'll have a lot to learn post-COVID and a lot of challenges.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. Simon, same question to you.
So, yeah, I mean, I think it's self-evident that the data is becoming more and more crucial when we have these sort of national emergencies, crises, whatever it might be. The hope is that, and I think we're seeing that data is now guiding the decision-making process more than ever. The hope is that the data underlying all that is quality assured and is decent for making those decisions. My hope is that the true data experts in each area of data are involved in any decisions that we make about collecting the data. I often talk about a pyramid of data where along the base of the pyramid, you've got your data collection activities. And then as the data moves up through the pyramid, it might get less in volume, but it becomes more and more important until at the top, you're using it to make decisions. And the decisions that you make should inform your learning about how you're collecting the data at the bottom. And we as data experts, data practitioners can influence every part of that pyramid. And it's crucial that we do and that we get involved. My one concern about the COVID crisis is that there's been a big clamor for people to sort of get involved when actually they're not necessarily the experts, and they're not delegating those responsibilities to the people that really know what they're doing, and everyone's trying to just make themselves important. So that's the one thing I want us to guard against and ensure that we're there making the decisions that count.
Yeah, brilliant. That's really interesting. Thanks, Simon. Finally, same question to you, Carol.
Well, I think as the speakers before me have said, it's obvious that I think this pandemic has shown the importance of data, that's put data on the forefront of the policymakers, of the responses, sort of where are people, where have they been, being able to track and trace who they've met, etc. So I think that's made geospatial information very, very, very visible. But I think in a post-COVID world, I think the things that are going to push data are going to be a higher demand for information and also a higher want for accessible data which is accessible. So I believe organizations are going to have to be able to make data that is more accessible, that is more shareable and more integrated or interoperable, to use a word that has been bandied about for a bit when it comes to data. And I think because data is going to be needed to be produced quicker, faster, I think there's going to be a more imaginative ways of producing, assessing and checking and giving the quality stamp, which is what the calling card of NMCAs to data, because I think the post-COVID world, whatever it's going to look like, I think is going to be economically quite challenging. So I think that is something that we will have to respond to and be able to respond to quite quickly.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, all of you, for your time and your fascinating insights and contributing to the conference. A really interesting discussion, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Are we off record?